Hello everyone, Ticha Denis here again. Welcome back to our channel. Today we'll explore the practical part of Microsoft Access and we'll look at how we can create databases. 2, we'll look at how to create tables in that very database. And 3, we'll look at how we can add content in the tables. And finally, we'll summarize with how we can format the data in the tables. I've enriched the description, so you can use the description to receive or navigate to different links or resources that have been provided for this video. You can as well consider subscribing to our channel so that you are always updated or notified whenever new videos are added to it. So we're going to jump to our desktop and we get started. Okay, let us get started. We begin with creating databases. Having looked at what databases are, we're going to take a simple scenario of creating a database for a school called BAPS School Database. So our database name will be BAPS School Database. Again, so let's jump to our desktop. On our desktop here, we'll create a folder. And to create a folder, we'll right click on the desktop, select new, and tap on folder. We'll give this folder the name as School Database. After that, we press enter to save our folder. We can consider double clicking on the folder. Apparently our folder is blank, but this is where we're going to store our database. Now, to create our database, we need a database management system. For our case in this tutorial, we are using Microsoft Access Relational Database. Now, to launch Microsoft Access, we click Start button. From the Start button, we type Access. Please be mindful that you should have already installed Microsoft Office on your computer. To download Office, you will have to navigate to the website of Microsoft, then you download from there. But for my case, the software is already installed. So after typing Access, as it appears in the search results here, I will navigate and double click on it to open. So this is the Microsoft Access Get Started window. The three main parts here, we have the Home, we have New, and Open. Home allows us, one, to create blank database, but also to navigate to recent documents. We can also use this Home to navigate to templates as already designed databases from which we can create our own by customizing, and these templates are clustered according to different categories. I know you'll explore them as you try to check them. Then New will allow you to create a new database. Then Open here will be helpful when you wish to open existing databases. So I'll go back to Home. Still on Home here, very importantly, we have Recents, then we have Pinned. If there is a database that you always open and work with daily, you can hover on that database and click on this pin. And once you pin it, then the database will be available. Every time you come to Home here, it will be available. You just have to filter the category of pinned here and the database is there. So that's how you can make a database appear in your recents if at all you use it daily. So our case, we're going to go with blank database, so I will hold my mouse and click on blank database. Well, upon clicking blank database, you will have this interface. From this interface, first you have to enter the name of the database. Remember, according to our scenario, we'll save our database as BAS School DB. Look at the file path. The database is going to be saved in documents folder. If you wish to change this directory or this file path, then you click on the folder just after the file name. From there, navigate to the location from which you want to save your folder, your file. That is my case, desktop. Then while on the desktop, you'll have a list of folders there. Identify the one with which you want to save in the file. In my case, is school database, so I'll double click on it. And finally, we would have entered the file name, but our name had already been put at the very beginning as BAP School DB. You can maybe try to change save as type, which I will not take a look more about. So after that, you click OK and click create. So we've created a database. I can close this object. Just a little more to understand the features of this window. At the topmost, we have the title bar, and the title bar is currently showing BAPS School DB database. That shows we have already saved our file successfully, since the title bar will always display the name of the database. Below the title bar, we have the ribbon. The ribbon consists of tabs. There are lots of tabs here. We have the Home tab, Create tab, External Data tab, up to Help. And every tab consists of groups. We have on the Home tab, the Views group, Clipboard group, Sort and Filter group, Records group, and so forth. Every tab has its own category of groups, and inside groups there are commands that we'll be using either for editing, formatting, or the creation process. Now, please note that some commands have additional settings. For example, here on the Home tab and the Clipboard group, there is a dialog box launcher. You can always click this dialog box launcher to see all the commands in that very group. Below the ribbon, we have the navigation pane. The navigation pane here is where all the objects we've created and have been saved will be displayed. So for easy navigation or easy retrieval, we'll locate them from the navigation pane. And finally, we have the status bar at the bottom of this window. So next, we're going to look at how to create tables. In the previous video, we've looked at tables and we've understood the structure of tables, but just a little more. I want you to look at this structure. We have a subjects table. In the subjects table, we have two columns. We have this column and then this other column. Please note that in Access, the columns are known as fields and the rows are known as records. So in our first table, we have first field, second field. So we have two fields and then we have 5 records in the table. Okay, so let's understand what is required when we're creating a table. To create a table, we go to the Create tab. So we'll create all our objects from the Create tab. In the Create tab, we have the group of tables, and in this group, there are 3 methods from which we can create our tables. For this video, I will explore table design. So we click on table design. And upon clicking on table design, there are about 3 things we will be looking at every process of creating a table. First is a field name. The second are the data types. And then the third is the description. Now, considering our example here, like you observed, field name is simply the heading of a particular column. So we have 2 field names. We have this field name and then we have this field name. I want you to look at this second table that we're also going to create for classes. There are 2 field names. We have classes field name and then we have the class name field name. This table has also we also create the students table. And in the student table, we have the field names, this student ID, first name, up to contact number. Please note that these are simply column headings. So we'll be creating different tables, but these tables will be identifying the column headings, which we are regarding as the field names. So let's just continue a little more with the process here. So for our subjects table, we'll have the first field name as subject ID. Then we'll have the second field name as subject name for the school database. Please note that for every field name we create, we have to choose the data type. So what is a data type? Well, a data type determines the kind or the type of data stored in a particular field. So every time we'll create columns or fields, we'll have to specify the certain types of data that are stored in that particular field. Just to mention a little, we have text which can be further grouped either into short text or long text, and we have number and so forth. Now these data types have different purposes. Let's just broadly try to discuss them briefly. Short text data type is a data type that is used to store alphanumeric data, and it stores up to 205 characters. Then long text, initially in the earlier versions of Microsoft Office, that is before Office 7, short text is known as text and long text is known as memo. In that case, or in either cases, memo or long text stores large amounts of alphabets. If we're creating columns that are going to store maybe paragraphs or larger sentences, longer sentences, then we would consider using memo. Number will help us to store numeric data. If the column is going to store digits or values, then give it number. Please note that we have numbers that are of small size, then we have numbers that are of bigger sizes. So number stores up to 16 bytes, and large number stores over 8 bytes. Then we have the other data type as date and time. Date and time will be used for storing dates and times. Then we will use currency as a data type to store monetary value. Then we'll use auto number to generate unique values, like to create automated numbers, maybe when creating IDs. Yes or no is the other data type. We shall use it to store Boolean data with two conditions, either true or false, on or off, that way. And we shall be ticking if it is present, or leave the box blank if it is absent. Then the other data type we will be exploring is hyperlink. This will help us to store links, maybe email addresses and so forth, or addresses to particular URLs. Attachment will help us to store pictures, in case maybe you want to add the student photograph, you want to receive students' documents, maybe you see results slip, you can collect them using attachment. Then whenever we are calculating in a particular field, we'll use calculated, and finally we'll use lookup wizard to create drop down values. Now let us take a simple scenario here. In subject ID, because we want the subjects to be numbered automatically, then we can use auto number. Auto number allows us to create automatic unique values. Then for subject name, because it is alphabet, we leave it as short text. And be mindful, we chose short text because it is normally less than 255 characters as the field size. So step 1 in creating field names, enter field names. Step 2, assign them appropriate data types. And step 3, choose a field which is to be the primary key. Now, previously we looked at a primary key. We say the primary key is a field that uniquely identifies or differentiates rows in a table. You look through your data and identify unique fields that always have unique or different data. So those fields are called candidate keys because they can be primary keys. In our case, we only have one field, which is subject ID, which at all occasions may take different data. So after identifying that field, to make it a primary key, click on the field and then go and click on primary key, or you can simply also right click and click on primary key. So after you've added primary key, the last step is to save. And to save your table, you click the file tab and click save. We'll save our table as subject table. That is done. Now I'll close this. Next, we're going to look at how we can create the other table, which is classes table. So again, having identified already the field names, we shall go back to our access here, click on create tab, and then from there we click on table design. Don't forget, in all methods we'll be exploring table design. So our first field name according to the identity is class ID. Then the second is class name. Please note that when you're creating field names, you're not supposed to create space in between. Okay, for later purposes, because we'll use the fields in code and so forth. So after writing the field names, the next thing is to assign them appropriate data types. So this will again be auto number because we want it to be created automatically. And then for course name here we'll leave it short text. Class name will leave it as short text. Finally, we choose a primary key and class ID as qualities of a primary key, unique values. So we save, and to save our table, we click the file tab, click save, or press Ctrl S. So this one will be classes table. Now, how do we enter data in our table? First of all, to create our table, we work in datasheet view, and to open our table, we go to view tab here and click datasheet view. Datasheet view allows us to view our table in rows and columns. It displays the table as rows and columns. Design view allows us to design or enhance or edit or format our table. So we go to datasheet view and let us put in the classes here because they are already known. This is P1 and then this is P2, this is P3. Now note that as I'm typing, I'm using arrow keys. You can also use enter key because we chose auto number as the data type here. For class ID, the numbers are being numbered automatically. So I'll create all the classes that exist in the school and that accordingly. You can also expand the width of the column by simply clicking on the column or the field, then look for the resizing handle and expand accordingly. That's how we expand our table. I'm going to close this table because I'm done, then save changes. I want to double click on classes. Please, like I had guided, the navigation pane here will display all the objects you've created. Earlier on, we created subjects table. So to open it, I can right click on it, select open, or I can double click. And literally, like I did similarly in the classes, I'm also going to create the subjects. And that is math, English. Then I have social studies, science, then maybe religious education. So we've created our table and we have added in the content in that table. So I'm going to close this and it will prompt me to save. So we have the classes, that table, and then we have the subjects table. We are continuing to create the next table in our case, which is going to be now the students table. And please note the students table has very many fields, but will follow the same procedure. Students ID, first name, and so forth. Now just a little more to understand this broadly. In the students table, we have identified the field names according to our table, that is the column headings. Then subsequently, these will be the associated data types. We will choose auto number to take the student's ID because we want the numbers generated automatically as unique values. First name will assign it short text, last name short text, date of birth, date stroke time, and so forth as we work. Student ID will be our primary key. So let us do that practically. So we navigate to the Create tab, then we click on Table Design. Then from there, under Field Names, we begin creating the field names. Student ID accordingly. Then we have first name, last name, date of birth, gender, class, address, contact number. So we've finished creating the field names. That is the first step. Create the field names or the column headings. The second step is now assign appropriate data types. So for student ID, we agreed we give it or assign auto number because we want the numbers to be given automatically. First name, because it stores alphabets, we leave it as short text. Last name, because it is going to store alphabets which are shorter, we leave it at 255 as short text. Date of birth. Now this stores dates and time. So we click in the box, select the drop down arrow, and then look for date and time so that we can store dates in that column. Then gender, because gender is normally known, we want to create the drop down values to allow the user select the gender. So to do that, we click the drop down arrow on gender, and from this drop down arrow there are many data types here, but I want us to use lookup wizard so that we can create the values. Now from this lookup wizard dialog box, there are two ways of creating the lookup field or setting the lookup field. We can choose from the values from another table, or we can type in the values we want. And for this case, we're going to choose, I'll type in the values I want, then click next. In the next part here, we'll create our values. So the first value is F, then the other first is M, then the other is F. You can consider also writing them completely as male or female, but I've used M to denote male and F to denote female. And I can click next. I can give this a caption, or I can just click finish. If I want to allow users enter their own gender, I can leave it open. But if I want to limit the entry to only M and F that I've provided, then I have to check this box so that it is only those values that I've made that the user have to select. When I'm done, I click finish. So please note that lookup wizard is not a data type, but it allows us to create drop-down values, and normally it converts the results into the appropriate data types that have been created accordingly. So for class, because we've already created the classes, we're also going to use the lookup wizard. So click the drop-down arrow against class, then choose lookup wizard. And from the lookup wizard dialog box here, this time round, we will select this button, radio button, I want the lookup field to get the values from another table because we already have the table. Click next, and at this point you'll have to select the table, and our class table is already selected, so we click next. Please note that if there were queries, then you'll choose here, but since we are choosing from a table, then the part of table is active. So the next part here, we'll have to choose the name from which we want the user to select. The table has two columns, there's class ID and class name. We are interested in class name, so we choose class name, then click next. Rather select the field, then not all of them. I choose class name and then click next. If you want the results in the drop-down value to be sorted accordingly, you also can sort using this part of the dialog box, but we'll skip. Then these are the values, and that's a preview of what we created earlier on, from which one the user to select. So we click next. Still, you can either choose to allow users to enter new values, or you can fix them on that value by enabling data integrity, that is consistency. Whenever the user is editing classes, the changes should be reflected if you hit that enable data entry. So I'll click finish. So we've already finished creating that. But maybe mindful, because we are going to link the two tables, it is important we first save this table. So I'm going to save this table as a students table. Students table. And okay, just a little bit here. Let's first choose the primary key. Student ID will be the primary key. And before we even complete, we want to choose, we click on class here, we select lookup wizard here, and we click, we choose the values, again choose classes, choose class name, select, click next like we have just done before. Class name is here, then next, then I click finish here, I click yes. Okay, the next part we're going to do here on address, because it is normally longer text, we can choose long text. In some instances, address can include the village, the sub-county, then the county, we have district, the country, so those details can make the length or the data stored under this field to be longer than the 255, so we give it long text. Then contact number, please note that whereas this seems to have the word number, some people may be tempted to choose number, but it can never be number, because in numbers the leading Z is discarded, and yet for contacts we want to include in country codes, we want to include in formats, maybe every after 3 digits we put a hyphen and so on. So the most appropriate data type for contact number is short text, and accordingly when you're done you can save the changes and then open your table in datasheet view. So that's our table. I want us to try to enter some data in that table. Like I guided, to open your table, you navigate to the navigation pane, right click on the table, select open. That's how you open your table. You can also double click on the table for it to open accordingly. Double click on the table. To close the table, you can either use Ctrl W on your keyboard, or you hit the close button at the end of that. And we've talked about the views. Datasheet view, which allows us to display our table in rows and columns. Then design view, from which we can customize our table. So in this case, I'll enter my data, Enoch, the first name. I'm using tab. You can always press tab key to move from one cell to another. So the date of birth there is 6th of Feb then 2011. The E is male. The class, now because in the class, let's begin from gender. Gender, we had chosen lookup wizard. So lookup wizard creates items like this. For class, we had also chosen lookup wizard but linked it from the other table. So we'll choose the appropriate class for Enoch from the drop down arrow we created using lookup wizard. Enter his address. His address is Kampala. And then enter the contact number, which is 070644 8822. Now please note that to go to the next cell you can press enter key. To go to the next record you can press enter key and use tab key or enter key to move from one field to the other. So please follow and then enter the data accordingly, as I also keep entering. Alright, I've completed typing my data. I hope you had also finished typing data. Now I want you to take a comparison and look at this table. In the students table here, the student's ID is having the format BAPS 001, like that, beginning with the name of the school and then some digits. How can we format this field property? How can we format the tables to different field property? Now this is our table that we have created. Now to format this table further, we go to View, Design View. In other words, open the table in Design View, select the field you want to format, then under Field Properties here, click in the box of Format here, and after that you can now write in this field property. We want our registration numbers or student IDs to begin with BAPS, so we put BAPS in quotes, then 00 to show that digits are required, so it is BAPS in quotes, then 00 to allow access, numerically increase these ones with this format. So I click OK, and finally when I open my table, I first save Ctrl S, or I click File and just save. So when I open my table in datasheet view, it will have that format of BAPS. We can also format these dates. To format the dates, like we did, we open the table in Design View, and while in Design View, we click on Date and Time data type, then go where there is Format and enter any format you wish. You can either click the drop down arrow here and select from the formats which exist here, or you can create your own. For example, in my format, I want the dates to begin with DD, so I'm writing DD as the format, then hyphen then 4Ys, just to allow access to begin with the date here, abbreviate the month and then the year. So if I click OK and then I save, I go to File, then I click Save, and then open my table in datasheet view, you see the date of birth has changed to DD, and then the month has been abbreviated followed by the year. So we can further format these fields or the content in the table according to our own properties. So the final table we're going to go through again to create here is the teachers table. And in the teachers table, these are the associated field names. Columns are known as fields, then rows are known as records. So in the teachers table, we have the field names, which as follows. We have teacher's ID, which we shall give it auto number. We have first name, which we shall give it short text, because that is similarly like in the students table, and it stores alphabets. Date of birth, we'll give it date and time. Gender, lookup wizard. That is how we'll be creating our table. So let's create our table. Now from the create tab in our access window, we shall hit or click on table design, and subsequently we shall also put the field names first: teacher ID, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, address, subject taught, then we'll have contact number. So next, first step, create the field name. Second step, now assign appropriate data types. This one we assign it auto number, then first name we'll leave it short text, last name short text, date of birth we give it date stroke time, gender we still use lookup wizard, and from this wizard we choose, I'll type in the values I want, click next, and then from there put or create the values. Our case we shall use MOF, then click next. Here we want to limit. We agreed that if you don't want users to enter any other value, you check this box, limit to the list, and you click finish. That is done. Address, we also leave it to long text, assuming that address can be longer than 255. Then subjects taught, since we already have a table, before we get there, let us first save our table. So to save our table here, we click on teacher ID, give it the primary key, because we agreed we identify a column which has got unique values to be the primary key to help differentiate the rows or uniquely identify for us data in that table. Subsequently, let's first save this table. So I held Ctrl S and then I saved this as teachers table, and then I click OK. So for subjects taught here, I wanted to click on it, then click the drop down arrow, select lookup wizard, click next, select this table having subjects, click next, choose the field which you want to add in that table or link, which is subject name, click next, click next. Those are the subjects that have been picked from our table we created previously. Click next and then click finish. You can click yes to save. So contact number, we'll leave it as short text because we have justified that contacts have country codes which numbers don't have, the +25, +24, and so on. Finally, we can click save changes and then open our table in datasheet view. You switch to datasheet view. There at the bottom of this window here on the status bar, we have different views here. We have datasheet view and then design view. So you can also switch to different views by use of the status bar and the views at the extreme end. Next part is to enter our data. So we'll be sampling. Our first entry or first record is bearing these details. Lowy, remember, teacher ID will be created automatically. Then the last name is Namuli. Date of birth is 4th of July 1990. Gender is female. So when it comes to gender, because we created using the drop down list from the lookup wizard, then we'll just click the drop down arrow and then select it as F. Address, still you type in the address. This one comes from Wakiso. And the subjects, still we use the lookup wizard, so you click the drop down arrow and then select the subject, and finally enter the contacts for that person. So we continue. To move to the next tab, you can always press enter, shift enter, or shift tab. See, tab key can help you move, tab or enter key can help you move from one record, from one field to another. Okay, so Please, let's keep entering. Right, so I've finished entering my data. Like you can observe, I have 4 records and several fields. So next to our process here is we're going to correlate. Let's look at our data in the teachers table to see whether the data matches with what we've entered. Still in this table, under student ID or teacher's ID, we have BSF01 and so on. Now we may have to also format the ID to be automated or to bear that staff ID. So again, from this table that we have already created, remember right now we are in datasheet view. So to edit, we agreed we move to design view, and from design view we select the field we want format, which is teacher ID. Then we move to format, that is where we're going to enter the setting. So inside that, we want all our ID to begin with BSF, that is staff, the name of the school and staff. So we enclose that in quotes, then put 3 zeros at the end as digits required. So we can click OK and then save our table, open it now in datasheet view to see whether the changes reflect. Still with date of birth, we can go to view, data design view, click on date of birth or date and time data type, go to format, and like we did in the previous case, we can put DD, MM, and then YY. That is to put the format we want to have. So we save, click file, save, then go to view and datasheet view. So right guys, that is it for today, and that's how we create tables. We can create as many tables as possible. In the next video, we'll be exploring how to create relationships between these tables. Then from there, we can continue to designing forms to enter data. Alright, see you guys. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. It has been Ticha Kruger Dance.